Mountains clearing after rain. I will be discussing the painting by Dai Chen Zhang Daiquan. Chen was a modern Chinese painter born 1899 to 1983. He enjoyed a long career as an artist and collector. Many of his works were copied or often described as forgeries from the Tang and Song dynasty. Mountains clearing after rain is, you can see on the top left of the painting, provides the title and the inscriptions. They're layering washes of ink and color, which allows the colors to flow and combine, creating a misty landscape effect. Details are then added in the foreground with a fine brush, like the trees and the small buildings. You could compare this to modern abstract expressionist artist Helen Fenthaler in The Bay. Has a striking resemblance with the use of color splashing and the abstracted landscape form. Blue and green are a common color scheme in Tang painting. Another painting that Chen was inspired by and copied was that of Spring Outing, or Traveling in the Spring. This is a landscape depicting figures in the spring setting on foot and horse. The horizontal composition depicts blossoms suggesting a spring time of year, and aristocratic figures at leisure suggests prosperity. Again, the blue and green colors are made of mineral pigments of blue azurite and green malachite, another key component to Tang court style painting. Chen was also exposed to and inspired by murals, in which he made copies of, like this of Western Pure Land, a Tang Dynasty cave mural in Magayo Grotto's Dun Hong. It is several feet wide on the cave wall. Chen had exposure to these and other ancient Chinese paintings in which he studied, copied, and had a strong sense of nostalgia in which was rendered in his work. Another painting that Chen was inspired by and also had copied was this called Wang Zihe Watching Geese by Xian Zuan. Many of his works were also copied or described as forged. This is a figure of a calligrapher who is looking at the geese swimming and observing their movements in the water that they make, which is then inspiring his calligraphy work. This brings me to Chinese literati painting, because it is a principle in painting. Back to the Wang watching geese. This actually evokes a Taoist land of immortals. And again, the blue, green, Tang colors are used. The calligrapher is depicted as a recluse at leisure, and styles similar to Chen's work as well as content in his painting, figures, landscapes, flat, bright colors that are also reminiscent in modernism. And that, brings me to literati painting, which is where it really all began. It was a principle in Chinese painting. This here is a painting by a literati master, Qi Ying, and he is one of the most forged and copied masters. And just to give you a background on literati, it was a principle in painting that was being practiced in the Song dynasties and into the Tang dynasty. It was a time that individuals were unhappy with foreign Mongol rule, and they had developed a personal style that was out of admiration of landscape of their masters from the 5 dynasties. And these were all in line with Confucian ideals. It was, literati was copying masters just as Chen had done. I like this quote from Chen Heng's theory on literati painting, and I've compared it to the blue-green painting by the modern abstract expressionist Mark Rothko, because of the colors and the splashing of colors. but post-impressionism, cubism, and futurism as being driven on the tendency to de-emphasize the object and focus on subjective, as was literati painting, is what he says. So to me, this makes literati progressive, and I would argue that the word forgery is a bit subjective. I think Chain was not only a painter of his own inspiration and nostalgia for ancient tradition, just as literati, he also produced copies and sold collections of his own, such as the image you see on the right, Night Revels. He had sold that in order to leave China towards the end of the Civil War. So again, I find it difficult to describe Chain's copies as forgeries, as the literati was copying ancient dynasty paintings as well. And they should maybe be considered paying homage or recording history and nostalgia for Tang landscape. These were Chain's roots and his passion in Chinese painting. So when is a work considered a forgery? Should then abstract expression be considered forgery of ancient Chinese works? As well as styles and ideals in art are always influenced by past origins. So modernity is always in line with the past. And I would describe that in Chain's work as well.